It is December 5th, 1872, in the Atlantic Ocean. A ship sails alone, sails tattered, no one at the helm. The ship is the Mary Celeste. The problem? She is perfectly sound, she is well stocked, and there are no signs of a struggle. But Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter Sophie, along with 7 crew members, have vanished into thin air. Welcome to the enigma of the Mary Celeste. This isn't just a story of a ship and a vanished crew. It's a detailed forensic examination of a maritime event that has baffled investigators, inspired novelists, and created the perfect storm of myth and history. For over 150 years, the question remains: what happened to the 10 people aboard this ghost ship? To understand the end of the Mary Celeste, we must go back to the beginning. The ship was first built and launched in 1861 in Nova Scotia, Canada, as the Amazon. Even before she ever carried a paying passenger, her life was marked by tragedy. She was a 2-masted brigantine, roughly 99 feet long and 198 tons, a respected size for transatlantic trade. But her maiden voyage seemed to be cursed from the start. Her first captain, Robert McClellan, became gravely ill just 9 days out of port and died shortly after returning to the shore. The ship then suffered a string of accidents. She was involved in multiple collisions in the English Channel. Then, in 1867, disaster truly struck. Caught in a severe storm, the Amazon ran aground off Cape Breton Island. Her owner declared the damage too great, abandoning her as a total shipwreck. But the ship wasn't completely finished. She was salvaged, partially repaired, and eventually sold to an American mariner named Richard W. Haynes of New York in 1868. Haynes poured money into the wreck, completing the major restorations. It was Haynes who officially changed her name to the Mary Celeste, perhaps in an effort to leave the unlucky history of the Amazon behind. The name change didn't change the luck, though. After just 1 year under the name Mary Celeste, the ship was seized by Haynes's creditors and sold once again. This time, she was bought by a New York consortium, headed by James H. Winchester. By 1872, the ship's ownership was split among 9 different individuals. This detail is important because it shows a collective investment, a group expectation that this ship would finally earn its keep. The key member of this consortium was the man chosen to command the ship for its final fateful voyage, Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. Captain Briggs was no stranger to the sea. He was a deeply experienced mariner and a highly respected, devoutly religious man. Crucially, Briggs himself owned a 1/6 share of the ship. This means the upcoming voyage wasn't just a job, it was a personal investment. He had every financial incentive to ensure the safe and successful passage of the Mary Celeste and her valuable cargo. In early 1872, the ship was overhauled, enlarged to 282 tons, and pronounced structurally sound, a necessary fact to remember when we discuss her discovery. On November 7, 1872, 10 people boarded the ship. At the helm was Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, just 37 years old. He had decided at the time to make this a family trip, bringing his wife, Sarah Elizabeth Cobb Briggs, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda Briggs. A captain bringing his family suggested a high degree of confidence in the ship and the voyage's safety. The professional crew consisted of 7 men: mate Albert G. Richardson, second mate Andrew Gilling, steward and cook Edward W. Head, and 4 German seamen, Volkert Lorentzen, Arian Martins, Boy Lorentzen, and Gottlieb Gondenschall. All were experienced and deemed reliable. 10 lives were now entrusted to the Mary Celeste. The cargo was the heart of the ship's mission, 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol. This wasn't liquor. It was industrial-grade alcohol used for various manufacturing processes. It was a volatile, flammable substance destined for Genova, Italy, where it was expected to be used to fortify wine. The cargo was valued at over $35,000, a massive amount of money at the time. As the Mary Celeste prepared to leave Staten Island, New York, another ship was doing the same, the British brigantine Dei Gratia. Its captain, David Morehouse, was a personal friend of Captain Briggs. The two men likely shared a final meal together before the Mary Celeste departed on November 7, 1872. The Dei Gratia sailed 8 days later, unknowingly tracing the exact same path. The voyage seemed normal for several weeks. The weather was fair. Captain Briggs maintained the ship's logs dutifully. The very last entry in the captain's slate log was dated November 25, 1872. It recorded the ship's position as latitude 37 degrees 1 foot north, longitude 28 degrees 39 foot west, placing them just off the eastern side of Santa Maria Island in the Azores. And then the record goes silent. When the Mary Celeste was discovered on December 5th, she was approximately 400 miles east of that last position. This is the 9-day discrepancy. For 9 days, the ship had been sailing, or drifting, without a recorded log entry, yet she remained largely intact. Around 1 p.m. on December 5, 1872, Captain Morehouse spotted the vessel sailing erratically. He sent his chief mate Oliver Deveau and a small party to board her. Deveau was the first to step onto the deck of the Mary Celeste. What he found was unsettling. The ship was perfectly seaworthy structurally, but clearly neglected. Several sails were set, but some were severely ripped and shredded, suggesting they had endured high winds while unattended. The running rigging, the ropes used to control the sails, were damaged. Deveau reported a messy wet deck due to water that had entered the ship. Most critically, he reported 3.5 feet of water in the hold. While this was a lot, it was not enough to sink the ship. The forensic details of the discovery are what solidified the mysteries, such as the missing lifeboat. The yawl, the ship's single lifeboat, was gone. The davits, the small cranes used to lower it, were swung out, suggesting the boat had been intentionally and quickly lowered. This points not to an accidental fall, but an emergency abandonment. The missing instruments. The captain's cabin held another crucial clue. The most vital navigational instruments, the sextant and the marine chronometer, were missing. Captain Briggs clearly packed these, indicating he intended to return to the ship once the perceived danger had passed. The compass. The binnacle housing, the main compass, had been moved from its proper position on the deck, and its glass cover was smashed. The pump. One of the two main bilge pumps was dismantled and lying on the deck, suggesting the crew had been desperately trying to drain water or repair the pump. The items left behind also add to the puzzling nature. All of their valuables. The captain and crew's personal property was untouched. Money, clothing, tobacco, and all their personal effects were all in the crew's quarters. Even the captain's family Bible and Sarah Briggs' sewing machine were sitting undisturbed. Pirates would have definitely taken these. All of their provisions were still there. The ship was provisioned for 6 months. The cargo, the 1,701 barrels of alcohol, were accounted for largely intact. However, 9 barrels were found to be empty. This small technical detail will be the foundation for another leading theory. The galley. Perhaps the most famous detail, the stove was cold, and many early accounts claim a half-eaten meal was laid out. While the half-eaten meal is likely a romantic exaggeration, the fact remains that there was no signs of a struggle, no blood, and no violence anywhere to be seen on the ship. The abandonment was sudden, organized, and apparently driven by fear. This leads to our theories. Theory 1, the volatile cargo panic. This is the most widely accepted and scientifically plausible theory. It focuses on the 9 empty barrels of alcohol. The barrels were made of porous red oak. The combination of heat and the natural porosity of the wood would allow volatile alcohol vapors to slowly leak into the sealed cargo hold. This creates an extremely potent, explosive mix of gas. Experts believe that a phenomenon known as a vapor explosion occurred. This is a blast of hot air and vapor that expands rapidly. It is terrifyingly loud, forceful enough to blow the hatches off the ship, but not powerful enough to rupture the hull or cause a fire. The captain and crew would have heard a deafening sound, seen the hatch fly off, and smelled a sudden intense plume of vapor. With his wife and daughter aboard, Captain Briggs would have concluded the ship was about to detonate at any moment. He would have ordered the emergency temporary evacuation. This would have led them to lower the lifeboat, take the essential sextant and chronometer, and likely tether the lifeboat to the Mary Celeste to ride out the expected explosion. While they waited, a sudden storm or a large swell could have caused the line connecting the lifeboat to the ship to snap. Adrift in a small boat, the 10 souls would have been lost at sea, watching their undamaged ship sail slowly away from them. Theory 2. Nautical or navigational error. This theory suggests Briggs made a tragic miscalculation based on flawed information. The 3.5 feet of water in the hold was discovered with the pumps disassembled. Briggs might have attempted a botched sounding, which is measuring the water depth, during bad weather, and a momentary failure of his measurements led to him to believe the ship was rapidly sinking and beyond recovery. Another possibility is a sudden submarine disturbance, like a brief localized sea quake. This would create a momentary massive swell or shock wave that could have jarred the ship, convincing Briggs that the keel was fatally cracked. With his pumps already struggling, he would have had reason to believe the ship was doomed. Given his family was aboard, Briggs may have panicked and ordered the evacuation, believing the ship only had minutes to live. The missing chronometer proves his intent to return if the vessel stayed afloat, but the small lifeboat was no match for the open sea. Theory 3. Foul play. This theory was the one championed by the man in charge of the official inquiry. Attorney General Frederick Solly Flood, based in Gibraltar, was convinced the case involved foul play. He pointed to alleged bloodstains and a sword found with rust marks he believed were blood. Solly Flood insisted the crew mutinied against the captain. The problem with this theory is the crew were highly experienced and there was no sign of a struggle, no bodies, and no weapons were missing. Why would they leave all their valuables behind? The simplest answer for an abandoned ship is piracy. But the problem with that is, pirates would have taken the cash, the rum, and the valuable cargo, yet the cargo was nearly all intact and the money was untouched. Another theory was insurance fraud. Solly Flood suggested a conspiracy between Captain Briggs and his friends Captain Morehouse of the De Gratia to commit insurance fraud. The problem is that Briggs had a 1/6 stake in the ship and was highly moral. Also, leaving a perfectly sound ship with full cargo is a poor way to commit fraud. Ironically, this theory foreshadowed the Mary Celeste's actual end. Theory 4. Extreme natural phenomena. We look beyond human agency to the environment itself, such as a sudden unpredictable waterspout, a sea-going tornado, could have struck the ship. This event is highly localized and would have ripped the sails and deposited large amounts of water into the hold, all in a matter of seconds. The surprise and speed of the event could have convinced Briggs the ship was facing an immediate structural threat, forcing the abandonment. A massive unpredictable rogue wave could have washed the deck, throwing the entire crew overboard in a single, devastating moment, while leaving the ship relatively undamaged structurally. The wave would have also stripped the deck of the missing lifeboat and other loose items. Theory 5. The fantastical. Finally, we address the theories that move beyond forensic evidence and enter the realm of folklore and the deep human fear of the unknown. These are the theories that helped the Mary Celeste become a global legend. One of those theories is a sea monster attack. In the late 19th century, tales of giant squid and krakens were still fresh in the minds of sailors. This theory suggests a colossal sea creature, perhaps a giant squid, dragged the crew directly from the deck or launched a brief, devastating assault. The sheer speed and surprise of such an attack could explain why the abandonment was so sudden. Another theory that has been floating around is ergot poisoning and mass psychosis. This is one of the more detailed medical-based fantastical theories. It suggests that the crew's food supply, particularly the rye flour used for baking, was contaminated with ergot fungus. Ergotism is a real condition that causes severe symptoms, including convulsions, burning sensations, and intense hallucinations and psychosis. If the entire crew consumed contaminated food, they would have suffered a shared psychotic break. This would have led them to collectively jump overboard, or maybe commit an act of mass confused abandonment. But perhaps the spookiest theory of all is the cursed ship and the paranormal. For many, the true answer lies in the ship's own dark history. We mentioned the Amazon's terrible luck, the death of the first captain, the numerous collisions, and being abandoned as a wreck. The idea is that the Mary Celeste was simply cursed, haunted by its past. This theory suggests that the abandonment was the result of a paranormal event, a phenomenon that simply erased the crew. In the absence of bodies or conclusive evidence, this becomes the romantic, unprovable answer that forever fuels the legend. A terrifying, unknowable force claimed the crew, leaving the perfect silent ship as its chilling monument. The Mary Celeste was salvaged, renamed, and sold by several other owners until her final ironic fate. In 1885, she was deliberately and fraudulently wrecked off the coast of Haiti by her captain at the time, Gilman Parker, in an attempt to collect insurance money. But the real mystery was never solved. Most historians side with the Volatile Cargo Panic. The terrifying roar, the emergency evacuation, and the single snap tether line. It's the most logical explanation for a sudden organized abandonment of a sound vessel. But without the bodies, without the log slate detailing the final hours, the chilling question remains unanswered. But the conversation doesn't end here. The mystery is also yours to solve. What do you think happened to the 10 souls aboard the Mary Celeste? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoy the dark, the scary, and the unexplained. Thank you for venturing into the dark with me. The world is full of things we cannot explain, but we'll keep looking. Until next time, my fellow spooky lovers, and remember, the truth is often hidden by night. Bye.